Hi everyone, I'm Eriko. I'm with Raj Baradarajan and Resijan Ambia. So we are from HRPP Regulatory Support Office. So we are thrilled to start new Sponsor Investigator Support Program FDA mini-series. So before that, I want to quickly remind you Regulatory Support Office free services that we offer to investigator and study team. Once again, first, we have CT.gov support program. We assist responsible parties, so PI with clinicaltrials.gov reporting. Second, we also assist sponsors, so who initiate the clinical investigation and who holds the IND and IDE with FDA reporting requirements, so which includes IND, IDE, preparation, submission, and maintenance activities. Finally, we provide resources, regulatory education, and best practice training to the research community. Regulatory Support Office is really here to provide comprehensive regulatory expertise, regulatory support, and regulatory education to investigator and their team. With that, here is an outline of 6 parts FDA mini-series. So the goal of this mini-series is to really to provide step-by-step guidance on IND IDE regulatory process. So today, Resija and Raj will provide practical advice and tips and demonstrate best practice on how to successfully prepare IND and IDE. So now I'm going to turn over to Resija to kick off the part 1 of FDA 6 parts mini-series. Resija?
Thank you, Eriko. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start with a quick overview of IND so that we are all on the same page before Raj talks about the in-depth IND preparation. So, what is an IND? IND is a request for authorization from the FDA to administer investigational articles, that is drugs and biologics, to humans. There are 2 main types of IND, commercial IND and research IND. Ultimate goal of commercial IND is to obtain marketing approval of investigational drugs or biologics and often initiated by the drug companies. Primary goal of research IND is to research and to publish the results of drug trial. Majority of INDs which are submitted by the academic institutions like UT Southwestern are research INDs. The contents of IND application are as seen here, which will be discussed in detail by Raj. Finally, who must submit an IND? It is the sponsor or sponsor investigator who submits it. Now, let's review some of the definitions. A sponsor is the one who initiates a clinical investigation. The investigator is the one who conducts a clinical investigation, and the sponsor investigator is the one who both initiates and conducts the clinical investigation. I want to remind you that sponsor and investigator each have responsibilities during clinical investigation of investigational products. In this slide, I have summarized the responsibilities for both. In the interest of time, I won't go over all, but I want to highlight one of the sponsor responsibilities, that is, maintaining an effective IND or IDE by reviewing and evaluating evidence related to safety and effectiveness of the drug, submit safety reports, annual reports, protocol amendments to the FDA. So if you're not the sponsor, if you're not initiating the clinical investigation, you do not have to worry about preparing the IND. To learn more about IND and sponsor responsibilities, please visit our website. We have the links to the videos on these topics. That is the drug overview and IND preparation, which was done in July last year during Research Matters. And the other one that I did on sponsor and sponsor investigator responsibilities in January last year. Now, this is the IND life cycle, and throughout these mini series, we will talk about each of these steps in detail. But today, we will focus only on step 1 and portion of step 2. So step 1, visit our website and book a free consultation. Here is the link available on our website. And when we meet, the first thing we will do is to determine appropriate regulatory pathway for the study team. There are different regulatory pathways and requirements for different types of INDs as shown here. As mentioned earlier, the majority of INDs submitted by the UT Southwestern investigators are non-commercial IND, namely research IND, which we will focus in today's talk. In addition to the regulatory pathways for your clinical investigation, we also provide guidance on other parallel requirements such as IRB submission and clinicaltrials.gov reporting requirements and timing for these submissions. During this time, we help you clarify the parallel requirements and provide assistance however we can. These are some of the questions we often get. The next step is to assess whether pre-IND consultation meeting with FDA is needed for your study. For example, there may be a situation where it is unclear an IND is required or not, and we can actually request a formal meeting with FDA. And these are different divisions that we can contact and seek advice, which we can also help you with. Then once we know that the IND needs to be submitted, we will review the IND contents and format with the study team. Now I'm going to pass it over to Raj to talk about IND contents in detail and IND application preparation best practice. Take it away, Raj.
Thank you, Rasija. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be presenting the IND and IDE application preparation. First IND and then IDE. My IND focus will be on research IND or investigator-initiated IND. Research IND application has administrative, clinical, and non-clinical components. Investigator teams can get a lot of assistance for the IND preparation from the Regulatory Support Office, where we provide guidance for putting together the documents and content for the IND components, and review and feedback on the draft documents to get them all up to submission readiness. Our support will also direct you to the UT Southwest online resources for certain document templates and links to the FDA sites for downloading the federal forms and additional guidance information if needed. Next slide, please. Here is the checklist showing the breakdown of the different IND components seen in the previous slides. Our review process will go through the content of each checklist item to make sure that they meet the regulatory requirements. Here, we should stress that our review process will not be critiquing the scientific or clinical details or their accuracy, but rather confirming the regulatory quality required for the IND approval to enable study initiation. Regulatory quality in document content will be assessed based on adequacy, acceptability, and standard as required. Thus, our approach incorporates the FDA guidance as well as what we have learned over a long period, the requirements for successfully getting many INDs approved and by frequently communicating with the FDA. What the investigator team will see in the RSO service is our objective and best practice to make the entire IND process simple, straightforward, and manageable. This is in addition to how we extend the support specific to your study situation. Please remember, we make this type of service available for all the IND stages throughout the life cycle of the study. RSO service process also ensures that the content in every document meet the intended scope. Let's see this in a few checklist items. For instance, the cover letter. It has a purpose as a preface to the IND application. In addition to carrying the routine information such as the investigator title, the document list, etc., there's a lot more one can use the cover letter for. For instance, you can convey the reviewer in 2 to 3 sentences how the initial research study is unique and how the previous FDA-approved drug is going to be used in the new context of investigation. Similarly, the FDA forms 1572, 1571, 3674 are submitted each with a purpose. For example, 1571, it's a kind of agreement to bring together the sponsor, the institution, and the FDA. 1572 is another agreement between the sponsor and the investigator, or sponsor investigator and sub-investigators. Again, we would like to emphasize that our review, feedback, and guidance for each IND document will focus on the critical elements tied to the purpose and scope of the document. Letter of authorization. It is a critical piece in the application package. It is provided by the manufacturer or IND holder of the approved drug to be used. LOA, it's called, is needed for the FDA to cross-reference the manufacturer's IND in certain areas of the drug and the study for the proposed research IND. Sometimes the scope of LOA can extend to cover the manufacturer's intent to provide the actual drug sample for the IND. This happens when using highly controlled restricted drugs or some special category of drugs not widely distributed in the market. All these items, from cover letter through the letter of agreement, represent the peripheral or supporting documents for the IND application. In the next set of slides, let's see the documents that are integral to the IND. The initial application document is a very important piece that keeps the different parts of the IND. It has multiple sections, which you can see from the template on the right side panel of the slide. Information for some sections is put together by the investigator team from research documents, manuscripts, and grant applications. For other sections, reference is made to documents obtained from the external sources, such as a previous IND, package insert, or investigator brochure. Let me show some details in the next few slides to give a better idea. The application document comprises very logically laid out sections covering various topics you can see in the right side panel with the different colors. The first segment, namely the study information, brings together the different elements that describe what your study is all about. It includes an introduction to the drug in the first section, and then a descriptive overview of how the proposed study is planned. In the second, both sections have a moderate level of details in the content. The second set of colored sections below focus on certain previously known information on the drug and the study, which need to come from external sources. Let's see some details of the introduction section, the template. Here, the italicized text includes the guidance and instructions for every section and subsection, which are removed when you finish writing. Sometimes the guidance also comes with examples and suggestions to structure your description. Be sure to include tables, figures, and images as needed. The introduction section is meant for including the drug information with a brief rationale on how this previously approved or used drug is being fitted in the proposed context. be it for a different indication or population, or even a new way of delivering it to the subjects, whatever is being proposed. If there are questions, RSO can assist you as well. General investigational plan. This forms the section 2 of the template. It presents the study vision of the initial IND in some detail for the first year term or phase 1 or phase 2. Most information here is the study overview or synopsis. It can come from the investigator's work, say from publications, manuscripts, and grant applications. Remember, one doesn't have to be exhaustive with the study details in this section. There is going to be a study protocol included in the application, providing a lot of details in depth. At the end of the sections 1 and 2, be sure to compile references cited in those sections. You can have all the references consolidated at the end of section 2 or independently under each section. Now there is the good news. If you are not the manufacturer of the drug or biologic, there is not a whole lot to worry about the following sections, which are investigator brochure, CMC, pharmacology, toxicology, and previous human experience. You can refer to the package insert or the letter of agreement that will provide the reference to these topics from the previous IND. I'll go over the information in the next few slides. Investigator brochure is not required for single site research INDs. IBs, they are called. They're needed if multiple sites or multiple approved drugs are involved. For multiple sites, each site gets an IB. For multiple drugs, there are separate IBs for each drug. The investigator team has the option to request an IB when seeking the letter of agreement from the manufacturer. So what is an IB? It is a comprehensive manual which serves as a clinical team's reference at the site. It includes non-clinical, manufacturing, and clinical information of the drug, along with the side effects and adverse events in a nutshell. If you need to prepare an IB, the research IND template has the guidance. In addition, RSO can assist. Clinical research is a section that provides a good summary of the clinical protocol, highlighting the key areas of the proposed clinical studies in 1 to 2 pages. In a way, there is a lot of information overlap between the content here and section 2. However, each document conveys the message at different levels. Quality section. This is very important because it talks about the drug manufacturing, processing, and quality compliance aspects. The FDA does not expect all this information in an investigator IND. However, it is important to cite the package insert or the manufacturer's IND as the reference source for the quality section. The IB will also serve the purpose. Non-clinical section refers to certain aspects of animal studies, such as pharmacology and toxicology, which were completed previously for the drug when testing it in non-human systems prior to human clinical trials. For the proposed investigator-initiated IND, details of those non-clinical studies can be referenced to the package insert or the manufacturer's IB. Clinical section, again, pertains to the previous IND. When the drug was going through the human clinical studies, the purpose of this section is to highlight for the benefit of the proposed IND on how the human subjects may respond to the drug, particularly in terms of safety and/or effectiveness. Journal publications, package insert, or manufacturer's IB will all serve as a good reference source here as well. Additional information. Sometimes PIs are obligated to provide additional information in certain areas, especially when the drug or the treatment itself may have some potential risks. For example, when human subjects are treated with some drugs with certain known potential hallucinogenic side effects, the PI needs to provide an explanation on what measures are in place to deal with those side effects. Similarly, when treating pediatric subjects, there could be certain foreseeable risks. In such instances, the PI statement is critical in describing the combative measures in place to address those potential risks. This is what the FDA would like to see. The last item in this section is the appendix, which will list all the accompanying items that are included in the IND package. Clinical protocol constitutes the heart and soul of the IND, since it provides the comprehensive information of all the study details. So it is of utmost importance to do a good job here. For that to happen, getting a good clinical protocol template that matches your need is critical. There are two very good templates available, one developed by the Simmons Cancer Center and the other developed by the NIH FDA, especially for phase 2 and phase 3 studies. Both are certainly comprehensive and based on ICH and GCP guidelines. Informed consent is an adjunct piece of the protocol. The FDA would like to see at least an ICF template, if not a fully customized document for the proposed study. The agency always accepts the institutional IRB approved template or a draft consent. Next slide, please. Package insert. It is a quick reference brochure and literature source written by the drug manufacturer intended for the pharmacists, clinicians, as well as consumers and users of the product. It summarizes at a high level the key information about the drug, outcomes from testing animals and human subjects, critical elements in manufacturing, and so forth. As you may recall, package insert is an excellent information source to refer to for writing several areas that I mentioned in the previous slides. Last but not the least, the investigator's CV is yet another important document for the application package, which brings us to the conclusion of the IND preparation topic. Now, I'll turn it over to Rasija for the introduction to the devices before I join again to talk about the IND IDE preparation. Here is Rasija.
Thank you, Raj. Now moving on to device. This is a quick overview of device and IDE for your reference. Similar to IND for drug studies, all clinical evaluations of investigational device, unless exempt, must request to FDA for authorization or IDE to use investigational significant risk device in humans. For more information, please watch Device Overview and IDE Preparation that was presented at Research Matters last August. And this is the IDE life cycle, similar to IND. Once again, we will just focus on step 1 and portion of step 2 for this talk. So similar to what I mentioned earlier, step 1 is visit our website and book a free consultation. Here again is the link. During the consultation meetings, we will help determine the appropriate regulatory pathway and assess if IDE is needed. In relation to IDE requirements, we can classify devices into these 3 types as seen here. Full IDE submission to FDA is required when conducting clinical evaluation of significant risk device. To learn more about each of the regulatory requirements, you can take a look at the Code of Federal Regulations listed here, and also the significant risk device guidance as shown here. And during our consultation, you can ask any questions related to the device. These are some of the frequently asked questions, and we can help you answer them. Next step is similar to IND. We will do a needs assessment for what's called Q-Sub, which is a meeting with the FDA. And in this table, I have summarized the types of Q-Subs. I would also like to mention an example that there may be a situation where the manufacturer of the device initially claims it to be a non-significant risk device, but the IRB disagrees and indicates it as a significant risk device. Then we may suggest the investigator reach out to the FDA for a study risk determination Q-Sub meeting because FDA has the final say. To learn more about Q-Sub, please refer to the FDA guidance on Q-Sub as seen on the left-hand side portion of the screen here. Then once we know that the IDE needs to be submitted, we will review the IDE contents and format with the study team. Now I'm going to pass over again to Raj to talk about the IDE contents in detail and IDE package preparation best practices. Take it away.
Thank you, Rasija.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rasija. I'm back once more, this time to go over the IDE preparation. Investigational device exemption process, like the INDs for drugs, facilitates device investigations in humans, particularly in a formal clinical setting. An IDE is needed when testing a brand new medical device for using in humans or when an FDA-approved medical device is being applied in a clinical situation, such as for a new disease, a diagnosis, or treatment. RSO can assist the investigator team in the process. IDE application. Preparing an IDE starts with a specific FDA form 3514. It represents the opening cover sheet for the application. In addition, there is a cover letter. Form 3514 is downloadable from online, where you fill in the information such as the nature of the submission, who is responsible for the IDE, along with several specific study details discussing the device and the manufacturer. The IDE cover letter is custom prepared in the same way as the IND cover letter. RSO website has a template with a checklist for preparing the initial IDE application. We encourage the investigator team to follow the guidance and instructions therein to complete each item for the checklist. Chances are some information may not apply to your device situation, so you can skip those areas. Sponsored information should be relatively simple. Most of it can be a repetition of the information included in the cover sheet and cover letter. Prior investigations are important. It's actually literature search that facilitates this, and it's an important step in preparing the IDE application because it enables getting some previous work on the device, on the actual device to be used for providing the background and perspective for investigations. Such information can be your own preliminary work. For example, animal studies yielding a proof of concept for a human trial. Regardless, the recommended scenario would be to bring together some truly illustrative instances of the device, its use and application that compare to your area of investigation to make the study understandable. Essentially, the FDA is looking to have some basis for determining or reconfirming the safety and risk level of your device and its effectiveness when used in human subjects. And the good news is there is a lot of flexibility for presenting the details for the IDE. For example, you can present it in a comparison table or in a synoptical summary from based on the key references. Investigational plan brings out the critical details on how the investigations are going to be undertaken using the device. The study protocol provides the critical information needed here as in INDs. The format will be in an expanded protocol summary, since a full protocol will be accompanying the application. The investigational plan may also need a detailed statement on any anticipated safety concerns associated with the device use. And if such concerns are serious enough, the agency seeks appropriate information explaining the measures to be put in place to address those concerns. Like in INDs, IDEs may have a commercial intent in the long term or short term. Given that possibility, it's not uncommon to note that some IDEs are submitted when the device is in the middle of a pre-marketing application process. Manufacturing information. FDA may need the device's manufacturing information in the IDE for developing a better understanding of the risk level in the context of the proposed use. For off-label and or modified use of an approved device, the reference can be made to the manufacturing details obtained from the approved product label, plus any additional information made to the label due to subsequent changes. When using an unapproved device, manufacturing details need to be in the application, which could come from the manufacturer or reference obtained through the letter of agreement. Investigator agreement. The details of this are comparable to those what you may have filled in the FDA Form 1572. They both emphasize on the investigator's commitment to the critical study responsibilities. If there are multiple investigators and multiple sites under one PI or SI, then each investigator executes one agreement. Investigator certification. The purpose of this is to verify that the sponsor or the sponsor investigator is responsible for all the investigators or sub-investigators who signed the agreement. This item may not apply to a single investigator with single sponsor investigator with no investigators, and you may mark it as not applicable. The next one is about the IRB. Unlike drugs, which are extremely well regulated, devices are far too many with highly variable product risk levels, which are determined based on every use and application. Given that, the interpretations on risk determinations may vary, or sometimes even the regulations may not be so obvious and clear-cut. This would also mean that on occasions, the FDA may rely on the IRB for a regulatory insight, or the agency may even designate the IRB as a surrogate regulatory body for a joint oversight. For all these reasons, the FDA needs to have full IRB information on file, including the contact details. Multiple sites. If multiple sites are involved in the IDE clinical studies, then the details of each site need to be provided for the FDA review. Financial claims are actually a description of the sales plan. When some commercial intent is in place. So when the sales idea is there, the FDA sees it as a commercialization effort and would need to know the amount the device is sold for. The sponsor or sponsor investigator must indicate if that is not happening. Environment-related information is provided if there is any environment-related scenarios, such as emission. This is to alert the device users and human subjects. Labeling. This is actually something comparable to the package insert for drugs. The template has guidance on how to present labeling information for the approved and unapproved or investigational devices. Informed consent is very similar to the IND situation. Additional information may not be needed all the time. It may be left blank, or it can also be, the space can be used for literature references cited in the application. That marks the end of the initial IDE preparation process. And with that, we wrap up the part one of the mini-series focused on the types of IND and IDE and IND and IDE application preparation. For part two of the mini-series, the IND and IDE submissions will be the topic. We sincerely hope that the information presented today is useful and relevant for your work. Please do join us for the other important topics to follow on IND and IDE in this mini-series during the succeeding months. In the meantime, please do contact the Regulatory Support Office for assistance in case of any FDA regulatory needs. If there are any questions concerning today's discussion, please do send them to us via chat or email. We wish to thank you all very much for attending